Sprint car racing is one of the most wild and woolly forms of motorsports in America. But don't take our word for it. Just sit back and watch the United Express Line American Sprint Car Series on the Chevy Motorsports Hour.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Devil's Bowl Speedway in the heart of Texas. I'm Larry Newber, and this is Brad Doty, himself a former All-American sprint car driver. Sprint car racing is still the most dramatic form of the sport in America. And on this broadcast, you are going to see one of the newest divisions and a sprint car division that distinctively has a personality all of its own.
These cars are so equal with the rules that they have. When you put 24 of them on a racetrack of this size, we're in for a good race. Well,
this is the American Sprint Car Series, and a big part of the reason for that equality are the rules. Here's Kevin Eckert with details.
There are a lot of sprint car clubs in America, but what sets the American Sprint Car Series apart is the engine rule. You must run a Brodex spec head on your engine, and if you don't have one, you must run this restrictor gasket. It restricts the flow of methanol into the cylinders and therefore increases engine life. The other rule in the ASCS concerns the right rear tire. You must run a McCreary tire on that corner, and you're limited to 2 selections, medium and hard.
Sprint car racing on the Chevrolet Motorsports Hour is brought to you by Genuine Chevrolet, the cars more champions trust. And by the new Motel 6, renovating across America and offering free morning coffee and HBO. And by Action Rent to Own. Bring it all home. And by United Express Line Transporters, the official trailer of ASCS. And all of the associate sponsors. Back with sprint car racing after these words. In the shadows of the Big D, Dallas, Mesquite, Texas to be exact, this is ASCS Sprint Car Racing. You're watching the first of 3 B feature events. Only the first 2 finishers from this race will move on to the main event. Currently, the main event houses 14 cars. Those were the top drivers from the preliminary heat races, which have already passed. There are going to be 15 cars in this race for 12 laps, and again, only the first 2 finishers move on. Kevin Ramey from Texas and Greg Young from Texas will start in the front row. The second row is Rick Zeal from New Mexico and Don Gross. Last chance, Brad.
This is it. If you don't run the top 2 of this, you load up and go home.
And some of these guys have come a long ways away. We've had cars here this weekend all the way from Minnesota where green flag and the first B main is underway. Cars bouncing off the wall in the front straightaway even before they cross the start-finish line, but the green flag stays out, and Greg Young and Kevin Ramey fight it out for their lead.
That was 21 of Terry Lee Brewer that got in the fence coming out of turn 4. A few years ago, they moved the wall in, Larry, toward the infield, 10 or 20 feet, and boy, it comes up quick when you come downhill into turn 4 at a lot of speed, and it's hard to stay out of it sometimes.
Greg Young continues to lead. Ramey is second. Rick Zeal, he was in it for that battle for second position, but momentarily lost control during the first couple of laps and lost valuable ground on the racetrack.
Again, you can see coming off of turn 4 how much of the racetrack they do use out against the wall again as they come uphill out of turn 2. The back straightaway is 15 feet higher. So as a driver, when you come up out of turn 2 uphill, you can feel the engine really lag down. And it's a pull up through there.
Brad, that fourth turn phenomenon is an interesting one because that corner was actually made tighter, the request of an insurance company, supposedly for safety reasons.
Yeah, when we came back after they moved that wall in, a lot of us pounded that thing because we were used to coming off of turn 4 and having so much room. And then when they moved it in, boy, it was real easy to get into then. As you see Rick Zeal in the 18 trying to close in, trying to get a spot.
Young has held the lead on this since lap number 1, and Zeal has been doing battle with Kevin Ramey, but he takes over the position. The yellow comes out.
Unfortunately for him, the yellow comes out because what that'll do is put him back now. He was in a transfer spot. Now that'll move him back into third because they go back to the last completed lap.
Yellow came out after 4 of the 12 laps being completed for Steve King, the orange number 88X, who spun without further incident coming around corner number 2. So 8 laps remain.
Rick Zeal that we were just talking about, he was here a couple weeks ago and put his 410 engine in and ran with the World of Outlaws when they were here. The ASCS has a 360 cubic inch limit, a tire rule in the right rear, and a non-slider wing is the only difference between that and a so-called outlaw sprint car.
For those of you that are familiar with outlaw sprint car racing, you may be wondering, hey, was that a green flag restart in a front stretch? Yes, it was. This series has a personality all of its own, and Emmett Hahn, who is the chief steward of ASCS Racing, he does not feel as though that races were intended to start in the backstretch. So these races are restarted at the, note this, start-finish line.
You're exactly right. You know, and this is the first time I've seen this, and I like it. I think it's good for the fans. It's good for the drivers. You know, everybody can see where they're going, and nobody can pass till they get by that orange cone on the front straightaway.
I do have personal strong feelings about it, Brad. I think it's fair.
It is. It is really fair. As I talk, there's Rick Zeal in the 18. Boy, he lost out on that one. He was in a transfer spot until the yellow came out.
And he just didn't hit it perfectly on the restart, and it gave Ramey a chance to jump ahead of him. So Ramey reasserts himself, and right now, Zeal, he's got about half this race to catch up with Ramey, but he's got some ground to make up.
Yeah, they're getting kind of strung out right now, and then without lap traffic, you know, it doesn't look like he's going to close in very much. As we see the 23, our leader, that's coming out of turn 2, uphill. There's Ramey in the 1.
And Zeal running in 3rd. Now, Young has led this race since the green fell. He's from Grand Prairie, Texas, and just barely missed out picking up enough points in the preliminaries. And what I mean by that is they award points not only based on where you finish in your heat races, but the number of cars that you pass. So, for instance, if you start last in your heat race and only finish 2nd or 3rd, you still may pick up enough points to qualify automatically for the main event.
Yeah, the guy that starts on the pole can win the race and not get as many points as the guy that starts last. So it's a pretty fair way of doing it.
Getting down to the final stages of this one, the first of 3 B features. That was Young. You see the white flag coming out, already putting laps on some of the slower traffic in back. Young now has about 3/4 of a lap to go.
Well, I bet Rick Zeal is just heartbroken right now. He's just devastated. He was in the show, and now he's not.
There he is, still trying to pick up that ground that he lost because of the yellow flag. He's not going to have enough time. Ramey's going to come home in the runner-up position, and the checkered flag is going to go to Texan Greg Young. There you see the final standings. Young, Ramey, Zeal. Wally Henson comes home 4th, and Don Gross in 5th. Let's go to Kevin Eckert in the pits.
Greg Young, you just won the first B main here at Devil's Bowl. How's the track looking?
The track's looking pretty good right now, except for it's got a few rough spots, but the car was working really well, and if we can do that in the next 30 laps, it may be okay.
How has it changed from when you went out in the heat race?
It's gotten a lot slicker coming off the corner, especially down here in number 2, and so that you had to adjust for that, but the rest of it's pretty close to the way it was in the heat.
How do the tire rules differ between what you run here at Devil's Bowl and what you have to run with the ASCS?
The Devil's Bowl tire is definitely a lot smaller on the right rear side, which makes the car slick. It makes it harder to drive, but this steel here, we really like it. It's the first time on it.
What's your outlook starting so far back in the A main?
Just the main thing is run the 30 laps. Hope to be there at the end.
Good luck, Greg.
Thank you.
This is the Devil's Bowl, and this is one heck of a show. Sprint car races. 2 more B mains to follow. They call ASCS sprint car racing Renegade Racing. I want to draw your attention to row number 2. Bob Ewell and Ernest Jennings. Between the two of them, over 120 years of age on planet Earth and 80 years plus combined behind the wheel of a race car.
That's a lot of experience, isn't it, Larry?
That's a little bit more than even you had behind the wheel, isn't it?
Just a little bit, yeah, a few more years.
Getting ready to go green. We're starting B feature number 2. The top 2 cars will qualify after 12 laps. A clean start and a great jump by Mike Chad.
Well, he did get a great jump. You can see right there coming out of turn 2, he's 5 or 6 car lengths ahead already.
2 cars move on. The cars are lined up according to the points they accumulated in the heat races. So the drivers who performed the best in the heat races but just did not get enough points to automatically transfer the main event started up front here. So it's tough sledding. It's a real uphill grind to move to the front of one of these B mains.
Take 2 of them and that's it. You're 3rd or back, you load up and go home. Or you could stick around and watch the race.
Yeah, you could watch the race. The white blue trim number 3, who's lost power, that bullet, Bob Ewell, the ageless one. Now he seems to pick back up again. He's back on the throttle. What do you think?
Well, either hit the kill switch or jumped out of gear there for a minute, just like he lost power or something, and then he picked it back up coming out of turn 2.
Meanwhile, Mike Chad finds himself kind of inheriting, but also racing ahead to a big, big lead.
There's the 2T and the 68 of Tony Wilson. Tony was the general team manager for the 4A Ron Pack car I drove in 1985, and we had a lot of fun, won a lot of races, and he always wanted to be a driver, and here he's getting a good chance as Billy Wilburn in the 0 is closing in on the 2T.
Wilson's having a great race. He started in 5th. He's powered his way into the 2nd position. And here comes Wilburn in that white 0. We talked about people who have moved from one aspect of motor racing, team ownership, to team conducting, to working on the team cars. Billy Wilburn, of course, is the tire changer for Rusty Wallace in NASCAR Winston Cup competition.
And he's very good at what he does. He uses Rusty's airplane. He's racing on Saturday night. He uses Rusty's airplane to get back to work on Sunday. That they're willing to give up the airplane and let him use it because he's that important to their crew on Sunday.
Big battle for 3rd is now over as Wilburn finds a way underneath and moves into that position, gets by Alan Payne, who also has had a great race because he started way back in row number 6. Mike Chad continues to lead as we're now approaching the final stages here of B main number 2. We will start 20 cars in the main event tonight, and from the 13 that competed here in this B feature, only 2 move on.
So you can see Mike Chad getting ready to lap the 42 of Joe Gillentine as he goes by on the outside there. Joe Gillentine quit racing in 1987, was out for 7 years, and came back and won his 3rd race back. That's pretty incredible after being going that long. He's struggling a little bit tonight, but it could be anything.
Tough competition. This ASCS is rapidly becoming one of America's most popular form of sprint car racing. Some people used to say that it was economy racing. It's not that. The word is more affordable. In other words, these are really purebred race cars, but they are just designed with durability in mind and also keeping unnecessary cost under control.
Billy Wilburn closing up. You can see right there in the white 0 closing up on Tony Wilson in the 68. Right there, runs right up to the back of him. But it looks like he either his engine's down a little bit of horsepower, or maybe he's got a miss or something, but Tony drives right away from him coming off the corners.
Wilburn had moved up very rapidly and suddenly there on laps 10 and 11, but as Brad called it, entering corner number 2 there on the last lap of the race, suddenly lost power. Now, he still may have an opportunity to get in because there are provisional starters like in stock car racing that are available in this type of racing, so Wilburn still has a shot. But meanwhile, Mike Chad was an easy winner of B main number 2.
Mike Chad just came all the way from Nebraska to blow him away in that B main. How do you explain your runaway victory?
Well, we're just trying to keep on trying, and the guys are working, hard on the car and just trying to figure out some new things with it. And working good.
Tell us about this car you got here. What kind of car is it?
Well, it's a Jenkins chassis, and then I made some changes on it this winter that I thought might help it. And it seemed like it's working pretty good. We're just figuring it out.
How are the rules at home in Nebraska comparable to what you see here tonight?
They're the same rules.
Are they?
Yeah. Well, we're going to run at Knoxville and I-80 are the same rules. So we're just trying out the motor and getting ready for that season to start.
Well, you got work to do for the A. We won't keep you anymore. Good luck.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Consistency and uniform rules, eventually nationwide, part of the personality of this type of sprint car racing. Fourth quarter, final inning, the last round, whatever you want to call it. It's the last opportunity for people to work their way into the main event. Here's the lineup. Draw your attention to row number 1, Eddie Gallagher from Memphis, Tennessee, and Danny Jennings of the Racing Jennings family from Norman, Oklahoma. 2 cars, 15 laps, the final 2 moving on to the main event. Others in this event include Travis Rowlett, Jason Poston, Marvin Lowe, Skip Wilson, John Ewell, Gary Rowlett, Alan Cassee, Brandon Korn, Jason Sides, Wayne Johnson, Chris Cleveland, and the venerable one, Ed French.
Ed French, been around for a long time. A lot of laps here at Devil's Bowl.
Getting ready to go green. The front row gets a big jump. The green flag waves, and we've got a major crash in the back.
I'll tell you what, that was a hard hit, Larry. When you hit the wall that hard, I mean, everybody's moving, they look okay, but He wants to pop your eyeballs right out of socket when you hit the wall that hard head on.
The number 74 is Brendan Korn. That 61X there is Alan Cassee. And also involved was Gary Rowlett. So 3 cars, a hard smack into the turn 4 wall.
What happened there is Jason Poston in the 4J for some reason didn't take off, and the 65 of Skip Wilson ran into the back of him, just kind of stacked them up, and these guys got together and turned them right into the wall. That's a hard hit. When you hit the wall like head on like that, it wants to pop your eyeballs right out of socket.
Both cars went into the exact same point on that 4th turn barrier, which is a bit unusual. The 4th turn wall jumps up and rears its ugly head again, Brad.
Yeah, you'll see it. The black car there on your screen run up over the back of him. The yellow car, boom, right in the wall. Look, they try to punch a hole in the same spot. It's a 74 of Brandon Korn there, you see, and the yellow 35 of Gary Rowlett.
I guess that's why they plant the grass behind that wall to make it stronger. Let me bring into our broadcast booth Emmett Hahn, who's the director of competition of ASCS and been following racing for the past, gee, I won't reveal your age, Emmett,
Thank you.
but the past several years. You'll remember that Emmett was also a pretty good racer in his time, and Emmett now turns all of his racing attentions to directing this series. Emmett, welcome to the broadcast.
Larry, appreciate you guys coming down, and I think we're going to be in for a good race here tonight in our main event. We'll find out who our last 2 qualifiers is here in this last semi-feature right here.
Eddie Gallagher has gotten the big jump. Danny Jennings, with the 3rd generation racer, is running in 2nd, and Travis Rowlett in the yellow number 53 is 3rd. Emmett, a little earlier in this broadcast, we talked about how unfair it is to call this econo sprint racing or cheap sprint car racing. It's really not a correct definition. It is a definition that would be more correctly associated, I think, with the word responsible.
Well, and I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we introduced our series up there, Larry, we said then that we wanted to classify it as affordable sprint car racing. And I think that's more of a correct definition for it, because these cars right here, like I say, Sammy Swindell has come down here and won here at the Devil's Bowl running ASCS. Andy Hillenberg has won in Florida running our series right here. So they take their World of Outlaw cars and just put our 360 engines in there and go race.
Definitely purebred race cars. And talking about Swindell, Eddie Gallagher's hometown is Memphis, Tennessee. Runner-up Danny Jennings, of course, from the familiar Norman, Oklahoma. As we've got a battle that has ensued for 3rd position, and actually a change of that. The number 91 of Wayne Johnson, who started way back in 12th position, has moved around Travis Rowlett and has taken over 3rd position and looks to be in a position to perhaps challenge Jennings for the runner-up spot. Remember, only 2 automatically transfer, although we understand there are some promoters' options that might put a little more into the field.
There really is. We got the halfway mark right there, but this is the first show that Wayne Johnson, even though he run in our top 5 last year, he's not eligible for a provisional, so he is going to need to run in the first 2 spots right there and outrun Danny Jennings, as we see there in the 61J. You know, Danny, being a rookie this year on our ASCS tour, Danny's done an outstanding job for a young kid. He's pretty mature. He don't take a lot of chances. When the car's right, he goes, and when it's not, he just gets the best out of it as what he can. Looks like he's putting all the pressure on Eddie Gallagher that Eddie can stand here.
Jennings is 23 years of age, but in those 23 years, he's packed almost 25% of his life. 6 behind the wheel of a sprint car. So, as we mentioned earlier, 3rd generation, he's making the most of it.
You know, his grandfather's going to be running here. Ernest is running here tonight. Bruce and Ricky, Danny, there's just a whole bunch of them Jennings. They've been around as long as I can remember, and that's been a long time.
Sad to report that Wayne Johnson, who was having that great race, who had moved up from the 6th row, has dropped out. So the expected challenge to Danny Jennings and maybe even to Eddie Gallagher will not develop from Johnson.
As they're taking a white flag here, Larry, I would like to thank Bill White at Action Rent to Own for helping us get this TV show on, and most of all, our Butch Johnson and Warren Johnson up at United Express Line. These are the first guys that's come in with a series sponsor, and as you know, without series sponsors, you can't make this thing work. As we see Eddie Gallagher here take the checkered flag.
Well, Emmett, in 6 short years, you guys have made great progress, and I think the interesting thing is how universal your set of rules has become across the country. It's seemingly a very sound idea. Let's go down to trackside.
Eddie Gallagher, you just won the last B main here at Devil's Bowl. What did you learn that you're going to change for the future?
We felt pretty good right then. I think we just need a couple of breaks and a couple of yellows during the feature, and hopefully not getting any wrecks.
How did the track change between the heat and the B?
It's getting a little slicker down there in 1 and 2, but other than that, not much.
How many races have you run this year so far, Ed?
This is the 3rd night this year.
How's it been going so far?
Not too bad. We got to roll it up in the trailer every night.
Well, maybe so far so good. There are still 30 threatening laps to go. The main event follows. Tonight will be the 9th main event of the 1997 season. In the previous 8 races in ASCS competition, 7 different winners. The only double winner has been Gary Lee Meyer, who is in this field tonight. The starting lineup is next for tonight's ASCS Sprint Car Feature main event. Starting on the pole on the front row, the winner of his heat tonight from Dayton, Minnesota, Billy Anderson in the bright yellow number 22A. On the outside is Shane Carson, one of the most successful sprint car drivers in the southern half of the U.S. He's got Knoxville experience, World of Outlaw experience, and many wins.
Row number 2, we have Danny Wood in the Doyle and Kenny Motorsports 8N from Norman, Oklahoma. Outside of him, 11X, Gary Lee Meyer, an ex-motocross racer from Cimarron, Kansas.
Starting in the 5th position, the inside of row number 3, last year's Rookie of the Year, Darren Pittman. Currently, he's ranked 7th in points, Owasso, Oklahoma's hometown. Larry Neighbors, another heat winner from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, is the outside of row 3.
In row number 4, Gary Wright from Hooks, Texas, has won a World of Outlaw, ASCS, NCRA, and an All-Star race in 1995. Outside of him, Pete Braswell won his first main in West Memphis last year.
Row number 5 is a row of former champions. Terry Gray on the inside and Tim Crawley on the outside. You see Crawley from Arkansas.
Row number 6, Jason Johnson and the Craig and Debbie Johnson owned 57 from Eunice, Louisiana. Outside of him, 88, Mike Ward from Memphis, Tennessee in the Samstown 88.
13th and 14th start. Row number 7, Bobby Huddleston from Grand Prairie, Texas on the inside, and John Bankston from Beaumont, Texas on the outside.
Row number 8, Greg Young in the Greg Young owned number 23 from Wichita Falls, Texas. Outside of him, number 4, Mike Chad from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Starting on the inside of row number 9, the man who won his B main, Eddie Gallagher from Memphis, Tennessee, and second in his B main tonight in the Westmarsh Schnee from Grand Prairie, Texas, Kevin Ramey.
Row 10 is 68, Tony Wilson, my old buddy from Bartlett, Tennessee. Outside of him, Danny Jennings, who's 5th in points, a rookie this year from Norman, Oklahoma.
A couple of top 10 cars in points starting side by side on row number 11. Jason Sides, 3rd in points, and Billy Wilburn, the Penske employee, he's 8th in points.
Row number 12, 42, Joe Gillentine of Jackson, Mississippi, 2-time champ. Outside of him, the 65-year-old Ernest Jennings from Norman, Oklahoma.
There you have it, the starting lineup for tonight's ASCS Sprint Car Main at the Devil's Bowl Speedway. One of the most unique tracks in America and always seems to produce some very thrilling competition. Let's hear from Gary Lee Meyer. He was the first champion of ASCS competition. He's had a great start to this season, maybe championship number 2.
Gary, what kind of tire did you go with?
Well, we went with the soft McCrary, you know, and we're going to go with the soft left rear tire and go out there. And, you know, I think it's going to get slick at the end of the race, and that's what we're hoping for, you know, and if we get going at the end of the race, you know, we can just stay up there where we're at and finish out at the end. That's where we need to be.
How's the season been going for you so far?
Well, you know, right now we're 2nd in points, you know, 5 points behind, but otherwise, you know, we've had one bad place, and the rest we've been up front. We've won a couple races and stuff, so we've been doing real good.
How would you describe making a lap around the Devil's Bowl to somebody who's never been here?
Well, you know, I mean, it's really weird because you're going up hill in 1 and 2 and downhill in 3 and 4, and the wall sure catches up to you in a hurry. You know, you got to pinch it off real quick coming off 4, but it's a very nice racetrack, you know, and it's fast, you know, and that's what's fun about it. It's a fast racetrack. It's real racy.
When Gary makes reference to the soft compound tire, he's actually talking about degrees. There's really a medium and a hard compound tire that McCrary Tire provides for the ASCS series. Again, it's an economy motive involved. Let's hear from Gary Wright.
Gary, you think you can win it from way back where you're at?
Well, I really do. We've won races before from this far back. I think we'll have the car going good in the feature. We're only 4th row back, so we can do it from there.
Are you going with the soft McCrary or the hard one?
We're going with actually the medium one, so it ought to go the way.
Do you think that lap traffic will play a big key in this race?
It probably will, because it's going to be a lot of cars. So, yeah, lap traffic's going to be important. Having a car that'll work around the bottom, I think, is going to be the most important tonight.
Whether it's midget auto racing, Winston Cup stock cars or Indy cars, the start of a main event of any type of racing is always dramatic. And Brad, I don't think it's ever more dramatic than at a sprint car race.
Oh, it gives me goosebumps, Larry. I tell you, these guys, the acceleration of a sprint car, when they get that green, it's just get to the front as fast as you can. It's always exciting.
And this is a particularly interesting series. This series seems to be on a roll and picking up momentum across the country. It makes a lot of sense, and it's also real professional class racing. Looking for the green flag this time around. Billy Anderson and Shane Carson bring them across the line.
They go into turn one right there. You can see the number 1 car trying the outside, back to the lead. Oh, the 22, Billy Anderson really hauled it in there and got sideways trying to get under Gary Lee Meyer in the 11 car.
Shane Carson will lead lap number 1 here at the Devil's Bowl in the back of the back. We've got contact with the wall and upside down coming off of corner number 4. 2 or 3 other cars also involved.
Did you see the rear wheels still spinning when he was on the throttle as he was upside down? The rear wheels were spinning. He had his foot in the throttle.
That is 55-year-old John Bankston from Beaumont, Texas. Frank Robinson's hometown, a former Baltimore Oriole player. Here's what it looked like.
Well, he hit the inside tire, it looked like, and it popped a little bit of a wheelie, shot him across the track. He pounded the wall with the right rear, turned him over, and he's on the throttle right there. He's stunned a little bit, shoots him back across the track. The 42, Joe Gillentine, did an excellent job missing that crash. So did the blue car there as they went by.
A very violent crash, though, and you can see John is out surveying the damage. He'll not be in the main event tonight. Back at Mesquite, it's a city, not a way of preparing meat. Tonight, this is the ASCS Sprint Car race here at the Devil's Bowl Speedway. Let's take a look at the top 10 and the national points. It looks like it's going to be a shootout between Gary Lee Meyer and Terry Gray, just like it was a year ago. Incidentally, you can get all the information about ASCS Sprint Car Racing on their homepage on the internet. You can see the abbreviation there for tapping in through your home or office computer while the boss isn't watching. Brad, that was a pretty tough wreck to start this race. That was a hard hit.
That was a hard hit. That wall jumped out there and got him again, but everything, he seems okay. I'm sure right now he's just concerned about his race car.
This could be a very exciting race. You see Shane Carson has the early lead. That bright red car is Gary Lee Meyer. Here's a guy who once won, I think it was his first year actually in professional sprint car racing, or big car racing at least, 49 of 57 events.
That's incredible. I don't think anybody could ever match that again.
Dick Trickle had some great years running stock cars in the upper Midwest, and I remember that Doug Wolfgang and Jan Opperman both had years of winning 40 races or more, but 49 of 57 is a pretty impressive number. We're back to green. Carson shoots out to the lead. Gary Lee Meyer is running second, but Meyer got a little high going to corner 1. He gets a great jump off of corner number 2. And they're side by side for the lead around 3 and 4, and Meyer takes the lead. Carson tries to fight back, but Meyer's going to lead this lap.
Shane went in a little bit high, and Gary just dove underneath of him and got by, took the spot away from him. You can see the track getting a little bit choppy getting into turn 1. It looks like it's a little slick coming off of turn 2, but a little choppy going into turn 1.
This is a racetrack where particularly both of these drivers, Meyer in the red number 11 and Carson in the white 12, they know it very, very well. Billy Anderson from Minnesota is currently holding on to the 3rd position.
Well, they got 7 inches of rain here yesterday, and it's showing on the racetrack. Makes it a little bit rough, and no promoter, no track repair with that much rain has much time to get the track, and it's a little choppy, but I used to prefer a rough racetrack.
Yeah, but you're a tough guy.
Yeah, I really am.
We really have to commend Emmett and Lanny for the preparation of this racetrack. I don't think anybody who was here in this vicinity a year ago, as there goes Meyer. He drops to the inside. Here comes Carson on the high side, back to that track prep, and now we've had a change of the lead once again. But the yellow flag comes out. Maybe this is going to be a red flag. It's going to be a red flag. That's Memphis, Tennessee's Mike Ward, who obviously, as you look at the crumpled left upright, I think he's been on the wrong side.
Yeah, he at least turned over or laid it on its side there when you see the wing looking like that.
Shane Carson, looked like you're just about to go back in the lead there. How's the car feel?
Car feels really good. I just made a mistake, went in a little high that one lap. I kind of figured the smooth line through 3 and 4 would be good, but sometimes smoothest isn't fastest.
So what do you think the fast line is now?
Well, seems to be like hang on, run through the holes, but I'm not sure how long you'll be able to do that without making a mistake, so we'll see.
Well, good luck, Shane.
Thanks, Kevin.
Mike Ward was not injured in that incident. Now, incidentally, as we look at the number 87 car of Tim Crawley, it looks as though they may be changing the tires. That is against the rules. You can change the spacers inside of that tire, and that's what's going on here, not a tire change.
Gary Lee, you're leading. How's the car feel?
Well, it feels pretty good. You know, we're changing some shocks and stuff, tightening it up a little more. You know, it's kind of rough out there, and we went a little soft and just keep it from bouncing around.
What are you changing specifically?
We're changing the shocks. We change the front shocks, then we're changing the air pressure some, and just a little bit of stuff like that.
Well, you had Shane Carson right on your tail there. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I just hope we come out first.
Good luck.
In addition to the two of them, Darren Pittman is in this one, Larry Neighbors, Gary Wright. This could be anybody's race. We'll be back with more from Devil's Bowl after this. If you're not an USACer or a Pennsylvania Posse or a World of Outlaw, you must be a Renegade and running in ASCS sprint cars. Here are the current standings. We talked a little bit about the term spacer. Brad, elaborate for us.
Well, the 87 Tim Crawley was probably spacing the right rear tire out, and what that'll do is loosen the car up. The racetrack's getting a little bit choppy. That rain we talked about starting to work up a little bit. So on that red, it gave the guys a chance to loosen up their race car, and by moving the right rear wheel out, that'll help them.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the equivalent of actually making that rear axle wider. And the car's axle has a wider stance as it traverses the corners, and gives the drivers, those who like loose race cars, a little more of a thrill. We go green. Gary Lee Meyer kind of catches everybody off guard. We might make mention of those restarts. You can start it at any speed that you want. The cone is placed on the front stretch of one of these races, not the back stretch.
He actually caught me off guard. I didn't think they were going green that lap. He started them really slow. What he was trying to do was catch him off guard, try to get a good jump away from Shane, which Shane actually stayed with him. Shane Carson, I'm talking in the 12, coming off of turn 2 and trying to catch him down the back straightaway.
But look at the jump, the two of them, the veterans of this type of racing on this track. Look at the jump that they got. They really parlayed that restart to a great lead. Running in third position right now is Norman, Oklahoma's Danny Wood in the white number 8N. Right now there's a challenge right there for that position. Back up front, it continues to be Meyer. Remember that Carson got around him just before that red flag for the Mike Ward wreck. Both drivers made some changes during the red flag, and so far it looks like Meyer made the best decision. But this is a dirt track. It ain't going to be the same racetrack when this race is over.
Well, that's right. And like you said, Shane got by him, but they have to go back the last completed lap. That's why Shane's back behind him. And it's a long way to go yet, and they're just feeling the racetrack, trying to find the best place that their race car likes to run. You can see going into turn 1 there was a little black coming off of turn 2. There's a battle for 4th and 5th right there between the 22 and the 11 car, the black 11.
Having moved into third position is Gary Wright, as Billy Anderson, remember he won his heat race earlier, the Minnesota driver. He's come a long ways to run in this race. He's really had a pretty good night because in effect he's kind of the interloper. He's the invader. He's not the local boy, and he has really shown well for himself here tonight.
Well, I'm sure he's a little disappointed starting on the front row and you know, backing up a little bit to these guys, but he's probably learning a lot right now watching those guys in front of him.
Meyer is already moving into slower traffic. You can see some of the real top contenders running here in the Southwest are having a hard time keeping up with this rapid pace that Meyer in that red, yellow numeral 11, and Shane Carson, he's definitely not out of it. There he is, that white number 12. One teeny little mistake by Meyer, and Carson is moving in.
Yeah, but look who's moving in right behind him. Gary Wright in the 9 car. The Action rent-to-own cars closed in on both of these guys.
Wright really was able to gain on them as the two of them approach slower traffic. The leader is always at a big disadvantage when he starts working his way through the slower cars.
Absolutely. When you're leading a race, you can get hung up, and the guy behind you, he doesn't have any choice but to go the opposite place that you go and take a chance of getting around.
Look at Wright. He goes all the way up to the cushion, but he actually ends up losing a little bit of ground. Now he picks back up again. There's Wright going to the inside. That's a lap car that he's moving underneath.
Gary Wright has won 5 All-Star races and 1 ASCS race already this year, so he's off to a good start.
Gary Wright with a lot of experience in World of Outlaw racing. The Hooks, Texas driver is recognized by many, many people as perhaps one of the top 10 sprint car drivers in America today. And Wright is moving in.
saw the flagman give the halfway signal.
Yellow flag is out. We have a yellow flag. Someone apparently has stopped out on course as Meyer woes the field down. Carson follows suit, and Wright running in third position.
Well, we'll see what kind of a restart Gary does here if he tries to start. Oh, there's our reason for the yellow. The 57 lost the tire. Looks like the axle might have broke, or maybe the wheel just came off.
Jason Johnson, the Cajun sprint car race, or ace from Eunice, Louisiana, is the reason for this yellow flag. There's the current standings, 15 of 30 laps. We're at the halfway point, as Brad pointed out. The halfway sign had just come out as this yellow flag fluttered. Now, we mentioned earlier about how a dirt track will change. You just never know which direction it's going to go. Normally, dirt tracks dry out, but this is an interesting track. Remember you telling me a story about there were nights you could come here, remember putting your finger into the racetrack and there's all this moisture underneath.
Well, the track can cap over, and when you get a lot of rain like they've had, you get underneath that crust and it'll still be soft underneath. And what's happening, they're breaking up some of that crust on top and peeling that off, and that's why the track's getting a little rough and a little stickier in spots.
Brad, I got to tell you, I like these restarts. There are some other types of racing that allow the drivers to start like a flying start going down the backstretch. The last time I checked, we called that line on the straight front stretch the start-finish line. I think this is fair. I really like this.
This is the first time I've seen this, and I'll have to admit, I like it too. It does it right in front of the grandstands, in front of the fans. Hey, they're paying the bills. Let them see how the guys are restarting the race.
And it really gives the leader the control of the race, which is another factor that I think is fair. A guy works so hard, either through the preliminaries or through qualifying. Of course, no qualifying in this type of racing. And then he performs well in the main event. I don't think he should be put at a disadvantage just because of the method we use to restart racing.
I have to agree. You know, they're looking at Shane Carson there and Gary Wright. Shane Carson's car owner is from Dallas, Texas, and comes out to Devil's Bowl every Friday night to watch. Very seldom does he get to see his own race car race. Shane keeps and maintains this car up in Oklahoma City, and like I said, his owner is just such a big sprint fan. He comes up here and out here to Devil's Bowl and watches the races.
Neither Wright in that white number 9 or Carson in the white 12 are really in it for the points championship this year. Gary Lee Meyer very much in it and hopes to run all these races and go for it. So for Wright and for Carson, it's win and win at all costs. I guarantee you they're looking for one position and one position only. And there goes Carson.
Going to see what happens in the lap car if Joe Gillentine kind of blocks the track.
But Wright washes out into corner number 3. Carson moves underneath. Here comes Wright down to the inside. He's looking to get underneath Meyer. No way of getting around. Carson, he does not have a clear racetrack. There's Gary Lee Meyer. He drops down to the inside. The leaders touch down the backstretch. Carson almost slips off the racetrack. Meyer moves back underneath. The lead changes 3 times in a lap and a half.
I'll tell you what, this is sprint car. Oh, have the
yellow flag. Now, this will be interesting because perhaps the last time past the start-finish line, Carson may have been leading, so it will be very interesting to check all of these score sheets to see just who was leading the last lap. Pete Broswell from New Boston, Texas, is the reason for this yellow flag. This one is far from over. Texas is one of the most unique states in all of the Union, and no other location in this country within a 4-hour drive can you go to beaches, can you go to mountains, can you snow ski, can you sunbathe. And right now, tonight, the super speedway of Devil's Bowl Speedway in nearby Dallas, Mesquite, Texas, is the center of attraction in the Lone Star State. We go back to green, and Gary Lee Meyer jumps to the inside. This could be a side-by-side battle down the backstretch into corner number 3. No, Carson gets a great bite.
They did score Shane as the lead that last lap that you talked about before break, so he got a lucky break there as he's pulling away from Gary Lee Meyer right now.
Meyer really has these starts down. He almost snookered Shane on that start, but Shane put her up on what is almost left of a cushion, and look at the distance that he has built between himself and second-running Gary Lee Meyer right away.
If Shane Carson can pull this off, it'd really be something. He went all last year without a win. This is his first race of the year. If he pulls this thing off, he'll really be smiling.
Shane, of course, is from the family of Bud Carson, who for years and years have promoted the races at the Oklahoma City racetrack. And I don't know about you, Brett, if you ever saw the old modifieds that Emmett Hahn and Harold Leaf used to run in the state fairgrounds, I want to tell you, that was real guts racing and really exciting stuff.
This has been pretty exciting here. I'll tell you what, this ASCS, they really putting a good show together. Good close racing.
It was really a tussle the early laps of this race, but Carson seems to have picked up some kind of rhythm, and it was a wake-up call. Of course, remember, he didn't get passed in a clear racetrack. He got hung up as the leaders were going through traffic, and both he and Meyer actually worked from a deficit for a couple of laps.
Well, like I spoke before, that's what makes sprint car racing is the lap traffic. Is Gary Lee Meyer dives to the bottom of Shane, side by side off of turn 2. Oh, they almost touch.
Coming out of corner number 2, Meyer's not dead yet. Meyer slides into corner number 2. Carson finds himself in the middle of the racetrack. He rocks through those ruts he was talking about earlier, and true to his word, he did stay down there on the corduroy.
Trying to run right through the rough stuff. Sometimes you beat your race car up, but that's the fastest way around the racetrack.
As he sees traffic coming up ahead, traffic was not in the preferred lane of Shane through 3 and 4. Shane goes high in 1 and 2. He likes the high groove up there, and then down in 3 and 4, he's finding perhaps a little bit of moisture down there. He has to go high this time because of lap traffic, but he's running this track differently at both ends.
He sure is, and there's Gary Wright, and when they got into lap traffic, Gary Wright running 3rd, and the number 9 trying to get around Gary Lee Meyer there.
The point standings coming into this main event showed Gary Lee leading with 1,395 points, but Terry Gray from Bartlett, Tennessee.
Shane got hung up there. I'm sorry, Larry.
That's okay.
Shane got hung up at the white flag. Look at this, side by side as they take the white flag.
Down for the final lap, Shane Carson tries the high side. Meyer somehow sneaks underneath the slower traffic, but it doesn't look like he's going to have enough time to fight back. Carson drops down on the bottom, runs to the ruts around 3 and 4, moves right to the inside wall coming off the 4th turn, and Shane Carson wins it, but it was dramatic in the final lap.
Well, he got hung up behind that lap car in 3 and 4, and Gary Lee Meyer and Gary Wright ran right up on the back of him there. I thought they were going to get by, but they didn't, and he pulled the win off.
The laps go by so quickly in a sprint car race, and that could possibly have been one of the phenomenon even staring Shane Carson in the face. Yeah, you have no control really over when you approach lap traffic, but sometimes even behind the wheel you don't know it's the last lap coming up.
That's right. You don't have time to watch the flags. You're just racing as hard as you can, and as you hear the crew and everybody celebrating there. Shane came down here with his daughter, 8-year-old daughter, Kristen. His wife stayed home, so it's just him and his daughter to win this race this weekend.
Kevin Eckert has been working pit side and track side all night. He now has the privilege of talking to the race winner.
Shane, it looks like you found that fast groove we were talking about.
Yeah, that fast groove was right through the holes, Kevin. I tell you that Gary Lee, I think he was second. He was tough the whole race, and you know, we made a couple of good moves through traffic and kind of caught him behind there a couple of times. But it's good to win, especially the first race out. We've had a pretty good team over the last few years, but this is one of the biggest for me right here.
It's got to feel sweet coming in James Helm's hometown.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's going to be loving this.
Did you have a plan for that last restart?
Not really, Kevin. I thought if I could get around him on the outside in 1 and 2, I could hold him the rest of the way, and it just worked out that way.
Did you have any close calls in traffic?
Yeah. That last lap, I ran up behind a guy that went in and pushed, and he just locked him up, and I about ran over him, but I guess we just got lucky.
Well, you got lucky, you got good, it doesn't matter. Congratulations.
Thank you a lot, Kevin.
Look at that smile. You never get tired of winning. Going all last year without a win the very first race of this year. The car owner, James Helms, they've been together since 1989. That's eternity in sprint car racing, Larry.
Well, traditionally, Shane's always run a $sign on his race car's number. And guess what? Tonight, it really, really did mean something. The pride of the Oklahoma City and Oklahoma City Fairgrounds, Shane Carson, the 7th different winner in 9 races so far this year. Let's take a quick look at 6th through 10th finishing. Danny Jennings, 23-year-old, he came home 8th tonight. Let's go to Gary Lee Meyer.
Gary Lee Meyer, that was a heck of a race out there. Was the traffic the deciding factor?
Well, no, Shane got by me, you know. I got screwed up in turn 4, and he got by me, and he could get around turn 2 a little better than me, but I felt like I was in turn 4 a little better. But, you know, lap traffic played it important until I got by Shane, and then the lap car was right in front of me, and I couldn't get by him. So, you know, it's one of those deals. It's just a close race, you know, and hey, you know, like I said, I don't think you'll see any better race than this was tonight.
What were you thinking when those cautions come out? Was that make you happy or sad?
Oh, you know, you like it when you're getting into lap traffic, you know, but it's one of those deals where it reach up and bit me tonight, you know, but that's just one of those deals. You got to go on with the next one.
Did the fast groove move around tonight?
Yeah, it was pretty well. You could run about anywhere. It felt like it was faster in 1 and 2 on the bottom, and 3 and 4 it was on the bottom, but Shane was getting in up top on turn 1, and I'd have to go to the bottom because my car wasn't sticking good, and, you know, Shane would just get a little better run.
Well, you gave the fans in Texas a heck of a show.
Well, thank you.
Gary Lee Meyer emerges with a slightly better cushion over second-running Terry Gray for the points here in 1997. Gary Wright finished 3rd in tonight's race.
Gary Wright, you just come from 7th to 3rd, just a little short.
Well, you know, we were right there. The car was great. The last yellow, we, I guess, knocked a brake line off. I didn't have any brakes. When I did catch him, I didn't have enough for him to go by, so we just followed in line for 3rd. One of them deals, 3rd's better than crashing.
So without brakes, traffic wasn't really working to your advantage at all, was it?
No, I would just have to slow down and let them go whichever way they wanted to go and then go the other way. So I couldn't race there at the end.
Well, for many of you, this is probably your first introduction to ASCS sprint car racing. As we told you, the basic rule structure and the approach of this kind of racing is popping up at several positions around the country. Brad, what did you think?
I liked what I saw. It was good racing. Listen to Gary Wright say he lost his brakes. He'd have been right up in there and mixed it up even for a 3-way race. I really liked what I saw. Good close racing all the way through.
We were introduced to passing points at the Chili Bowl. I particularly like that approach to lining up races.
Well, I do too. You know, a lot of people get bored with time trials. You know, it takes a lot of time to get them in, and this way you just line them up and race.
The Chevrolet Motorsports Hour has been brought to you by Genuine Chevrolet, the cars more champions trust, and by the new Motel 6, renovating across America and offering free morning coffee and HBO, and Action Rent to Own. Bring it all home. The American Sprint Car Series would like to thank Butch and Warren Johnson of United Express Line Transporters, the official trailer of ASCS, and all of ASCS's associate sponsors. So until the next time, Kevin, Brad, and I, we will all see you at the races.